All right, let's go into expansion tanks a little bit. Jared's brought a nice, fun show and tell item. We'll show you here in a minute. If you haven't really ever cut into an expansion tank, if you don't know how they are, we'll talk about that. So expansion tanks, let's talk about the size, the location, and pressure. So by show of hands, anybody in here check the pressure on their expansion tank every time they install it? Ooh, you guys are like 1 in a million. Okay. Plumbers too? Are you plumbers ever check your expansion tanks? Yeah. Good. All right. That's the answer we're looking for because everybody does.
Our shop actually create.
Do they? Okay.
But it's like rough.
Okay. When do you check the pressure on your expansion tank? So show of hands and then we got the mic. When do we check the pressure? Who wants to answer? There you go.
Water.
Up.
Before you're open to the system.
Okay. Before you open it to the system, right? So before you introduce the water into it, you got to make sure you check the air side. Okay. Does everybody understand that an expansion tank has 2 separate parts to it? We all in agreement to that? Okay. You've got an air side and you got a water side, right? All right. Expansion tanks. We're not going to go too much over this, but so basically if you're a service guy and you come into a system, it's already full and there and running, then obviously it's already full. So now what are you going to do? How do you check the pressure in the system that's already full and tagged to the system? Do you check it? Or do you just grab the Schrader valve and see if water squirts out of it, right? Or do you do this one?
Yes, dude.
Right? Knock it. Okay. But let's go this way. What would tell you that the expansion tank is bad if you're a service guy coming into the system?
The weight.
The weight of it?
Pressure's high in the system.
Pressure in the system is high?
Yeah, immense.
Okay. Or the relief valve is leaking or has leaked, right? And in that case, the pressure in the system would usually be what? It's too high. Yeah, it could be too high, but then after it leaks and goes away, then what happens to your pressure? Okay, but they could go off on... So actually on a domestic hot water tank, on your hot water relief valves, that one is pressure and temperature. On a boiler, it's actually just pressure. Okay, but if you create 250 degrees, you create a lot of pressure, so they blow off at high temperature too because you create a pressure, right? Okay, so if you walk into a system, because I've done this before, and the system shows 0 PSI, you start the system up and run it, and now all of a sudden it's got 20 PSI. Well, how did it just get 20 PSI in it?
Water pressure. I bring the system.
Okay, but what created the pressure? Because if I started at 0, and I didn't do anything, but now all of a sudden it went to 20 PSI after it's been running for 5 minutes. Nope, not yet.
Hot water expands.
There you go, expansion from the hot water. Okay, so that's a good indicator that your expansion tank might be bad, is if your pressure is constantly doing this in the system. Either it's undersized or it's bad, right? Okay. All right, a couple of things I want to point out, because you guys that are plumbers, you guys love to install that one right there. Why is that? Nobody can ever tell me why they put them upside down.
It's easy.
It's easy? Okay. I don't know. I've always wondered that. Nobody in the plumbers know. It's just how we do it.
Tell us it wasn't bad enough. So then it's right.
Okay.
Okay,
So, and I wonder if it's something to do with potable systems where it doesn't really matter, because in a potable system, I think they probably work more, I would think.
But more of a safety thing on a potable system, because, in theory, you should never really be closed loop, because everybody's using.
Okay.
But they want it to be there just because in case like your water heater.
Right. Well, there's periods of time when everything's shut off, right?
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay.
Like you have a big giant storage tank most of the time, so.
Okay. Well, where is the expansion going to go? Even though you got a storage tank or a water heater, where does that expansion go though?
Usually, back to the street if it doesn't have a check valve or a backflow. But,
okay. But if everything's installed properly, right? So now we've got check valves, we've got backflow preventers. So if you don't have an expansion tank on a water heater, normal gas-fired water heater, Who takes the expansion?
The house, yeah.
And the water heater. You ever seen a water heater where the nipple's sticking out of the top look like that?
Look,
What do you think caused that?
thermal stretch.
Thermal expansion. Okay. That's why we put an expansion tank in. Okay. You ever heard the stories of the water heater going through the roof? Okay. So I don't think it really happens today because now we do relief valves and we do all this safety stuff. Okay. But before relief valves and all that stuff came out, well, we learned really quick that, yeah, you can create bombs, right? Okay. Make things fun. Blow it up. Okay. So in a hydronic system, we like to avoid mounting our expansion tanks to those two different positions. Now, a lot of the times you can't do it. You can't always do it upside down like it shows in the picture, right? There's a lot of times that it's going to be on its side, or we might have to put it upside down. Okay. Example, what if we need to put our expansion tank up here, but our system piping is down below and we need to connect to that point. Do we just do it straight up and down like that? Is that okay? Anybody agree, disagree? Can I put my expansion tank and just make the connection upside down like it shows here? Can you do it? Of course you can do it. Okay. Should you do it? No. Now, what you should do in this scenario then, and what I suggest, is you take your expansion tank and you make your connection go up, but you make this a T and you put one of those little air vents that we talked about last week, right? Just those little canister auto air vents. Okay, couple things. One, this guy here is going to let the air out of this line right here that's going to come up, because in your expansion tank you got that bladder, so you've got air on this side, right? And then you've got your water air on that side, and you got water on the other side. Because we don't want to leave air in this side, right? We've already talked about it a little bit. What causes corrosion and stuff in our boiler systems, in our water? Pretty much oxygen does, right? Air. Okay. Your tanks on your hydronic side are still. Does still and air and water mix really well? Well, if you want to get rust, it does. Okay. If you want to get corrosion, it will. Okay. So this is, I would recommend, if you have to pipe it this way, I would do it that way so you can keep the air out of the system. Okay. Or there's have a hydro node. Okay. Calefi makes what's called, or Axiom. Axiom makes a hydro node. Oh, we showed you one last week. The wall mount bracket with the expansion tank mounting into the bracket that you can hang off the wall. We showed you one of those last week, right? Okay, you can use those guys because those guys come with a little air separator on top, whether it's manual or you can get an auto vent or something like that. Okay, so that'll keep the air out of it, but it'll let the expansion tank work properly. Okay, make sense? All right. Now, things to consider. If in doubt on what size of a tank you want to use, always go a little bit bigger, or go bigger than what you think you're going to need. Okay, you can, in theory, you could go too big, but you can, what happens if we go too small on the expansion tank? What does our system pressure do if we're too small? So when you start creating, so say you set your system at 15 PSI at 60 degree water temperature. Now we're going to take that 60 degree water temperature, we turn the boiler on, we need to create 180 degrees because we got a domestic tank we got to heat up, right? So we want to get that tank heated, we want to get it running. So now we're going to create a huge difference in temperature between 60 to 180. We're going to create a lot of expansion. Okay, so if our tank is too small, what happens with the rest of that expansion that it can't take? What blows off? Your TMP, your relief valve, right? Okay, so if you're too small, you're going to notice that pressure fluctuation, either if it's too small or if it's bad. So you might get good pressure when it's cold, you get it heated up, your relief valve goes off, your pressure gauge is all over the place, okay? If you're always curious on what size tank you should run and you're not really sure, just go to a bigger one, call it good, okay? Now, I've given you a chart to help you with that. So this is kind of a basic chart. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. But here's some BTUs with your different types of systems and the glycol gallon capacity that you would need to service that boiler to have an expansion tank that's pretty well fit for your application. Makes sense? Okay. So for example, if we got a 50,000 BTU boiler on a radiant system, what size expansion tank would you use off of that chart?
2 gallon.
You need about 2 gallon expansion tank. Now, what if it's a snowmelt system? What size expansion tank do we got to do then?
Bucket.
You got to go to a 5 gallon instead of a 2 gallon. Why? Why would a radiant system require less than a snowmelt system? Why would the snowmelt system need a bigger expansion tanks?
Hot water.
Pushing more hot water. Okay. Who remembers what was the symbol we talked about all the time?
Tilt.
Your delta T, right? Okay. What is drastic and then has a bigger delta T to it? Radiant or snowmelt? Snowmelt does, right? Okay. So we have a bigger delta T. We're going to make more hot water. So therefore, we need more expansion capacity to take that expansion, right? Okay. Now I got a couple. I don't know why I put that one in there. We got a couple examples that we'll run through real quick. Everybody good? You okay? Everybody still awake? I don't see anybody sleeping yet. Okay. All right, so expansion tanks. Try to avoid mounting the tank in what two positions again? Sideways and upside down, right? Okay. Expansion tank is always mounted where in the system in correlation with the system circulator? We talked about this one 2 weeks ago. Remember? Do we put it in front or in back of the... Before or after the pump? Before the pump. Okay. When should you check the air pressure side of the air tank? Before you install it. What is the desired air pressure side of the expansion tank?
Your running pressure.
Okay. Where do you like to run your system pressure at?
18.5.
18? Okay. What is our range we can run our radiant systems at pressure-wise?
12 to 20.
12 to 20 is a good number. Okay. I found it funny because some books that I've read before will tell you like 10 PSI. But I found boilers don't like to run at 10 PSI. So circulators don't like to run at 10 PSI. So I generally set mine that 18, 20-ish PSI as well. Seems to be a good number. Circulators seem to like it. I like to go more pressure. So if I'm doing a commercial job and the relief valve on the boiler is a 50 PSI relief, then I bump my pressure up to like 30 PSI. Okay, so I've noticed that, especially on the bigger circulators, they like the pressure. They just seem to work a little bit better, in my opinion. Okay, so, all right. What was our next one? Okay, so a residential boiler that is 250 to 50,000 BTUs doing radiant heating, what size tank off of your chart would you use? Who's got it? 13 gallon, yes sir. Okay. Now, a smaller commercial boiler doing snowmelt, we have a 500,000 BTU boiler. What size tank would you use? 66 gallon. Okay, huge difference, right? Now, so let's look at the same boiler. So 500,000 BTUs on a residential house, on a residential house doing snowmelt. I think that was supposed to say radiant. So change snowmelt to radiant. Sorry, that was supposed to be radiant.
Like knife of that one.
Right? So 500,000 BTUs in a residential house doing radiant. What size tank would you use? 21 gallon. Okay. I better make a note of that so I make sure I fix that. All right, residential house, 250,000 BTUs doing baseboard heating. What size expansion tank? Oh, what was that?
Like,
22 gallon. Okay, yep. Okay. All right. Most, if not, we haven't really talked about this, but commercial projects, who would know the answer to this? On a commercial project, you're supposed to have a certain rating on your expansion tanks. Anybody remember what that's called? Starts with an A. Okay, it's ASME certified. Okay, it's probably like just a different paint color on the expansion tank, really. Yeah, it's the same thing, but for whatever reason, if you guys are in commercial, they cost twice as much. There's the same blasted thing, but you got to make sure it has a stamp on it that says it's ASME rated for commercial applications. Okay, I have been called, I've been caught, and I've had to spend the money to fix it and tear it out and put the right one in that they wanted. Okay. All right. So last one, when in doubt, always size the tank bigger than what you think you need. Okay. All right.